right, folks, welcome on into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Fellman. He's Carl Jones. And Carl, a very special show today. We got a couple of guests joining the podcast in just a couple of minutes. Karen and Gerard Iglesia of Primetime 585. If you've been around Section 5 sports at all, if you've ever been to a game, if you've ever been on a social media app, you obviously know everything that they're all about, covering high school sports with just about as much fervor as anyone else in the area. And this week, a special week for them. But it's always a great time to have Karen and Gerard on the show, Carl.
Always. I mean, they're good people, good energy. You know, they always mean well. Every time that, you know, any fellow media member shows up at the game, they always show face, you know, talk to you and just, you know, just make you feel welcome. And I know it's not their gym, but you know that, you know, a lot of the people in the public, like they see them and they're like, oh, snap, like prime time in the building. You hear the kids, they love seeing them like prime time. And so there's all of their energy and everything about them is just infectious throughout the entire gym or field. Or I know they do different sports outside of just football and basketball, but just everywhere they go, they have a big presence about them and they do good things with it. And I just can't wait, you know, to sit down and talk with them, you know, in our space, you know, instead of in this big gym where you only get 30 seconds to talk to them. They come on our platform and they get to show and we get to give them their flowers and ask them for their thoughts. So I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, you know, they're also just a big help and in fact just doing our jobs. You know, they have a couple times sent us scorebooks, and just last night I asked Karen if she knew how to pronounce a player's name. I got that, all that good stuff. And they do so much for the community other than just kind of shining a light on sports. And like you mentioned, they do at this point, it's fair to say they do more for the quote unquote less represented sports than anybody else in the area. You know, we try our best, of course, to get to the big events, but it's you know, you can only get to so many things with everything else we have to do with, you know, the bills and local sports and everything like that. So obviously they do a great job with that. They do a great job with all their other things. You know, their free basketball camp they run in the summer, their adopt a family for Thanksgiving, their coat drive, their toy drive, and the Christmas time. So they do a lot. And they do a lot this week itself. This week is Matt Trabold week. It's okay to not be okay is the slogan they have. Obviously, for those who have been around Section 5 sports, this is in memory of Matt Trabold, a photojournalist who worked for our friends over at 13 Wham, who lost his life to suicide 2 years ago. A big impact on us all. So they have taken it upon themselves to join up with the Section 5 community and really you know, both remember everything that he did, such a great person that he was, but at the same time, you know, make it so everybody else has these resources that, you know, either Matt didn't have or Matt wasn't able to turn to, or just try and make it so, you know, these unfortunate circumstances don't turn out the way that they are. So a big help in that regard. So I'm looking forward to talk to that. But before we get into our interview, just want to go over real quick, we had some crazy things going on in round ball and things like that. I just want to take a minute, honestly, to talk about the game that I was at Friday night. It was Eastridge, it was Batavia, and we weren't really routed out to get to the finish of this game. But, you know, the stars aligned, some things happened. Where I got to the end of this Eastridge Batavia game, I was actually at it just before halftime. I stayed for almost the entire second half, almost the entire game. And usually, as we like to pull back the curtain a little bit, a team gets up late. There's usually a better place for us to be. Either we head back to the station and start editing, we go to another game. Somehow it worked out that there was not a better place to be, where I stayed at Eastridge's gym while the Lancers were up 12 points with about 3 minutes to go. And they were still down 12 points with 2 minutes and 18 seconds left on the clock. 12 points. Batavia won. They busted out a 17-0 run to end the game. It was a perfect storm. They were hitting their shots on offense. I literally believe it was a make, a miss for Eastridge. A make, a miss for Eastridge. Free throws, 2 make, miss for Eastridge. A three-point play, miss for Eastridge. A steal. Literally, it was a perfect end to the game. And honestly, I don't know if I'm ever going to see a finish like that ever again, Carl.
Y'all gotta like sit back and watch the highlights, because it's like hearing him say this is injustice. Like the fact that everything went right. Like it's one of those things where you draw things up in a timeout. And I don't know if they call timeouts in this play, like in this situation, but in all these situations as a coach, you tell your players, all right, we need this to happen. We need the trap and then a foul here and then all this different type of stuff. But the chances of this actually happening, especially with high school kids and all that good stuff, are slim. But it happened in this scenario, and it happened on the road. Just everything about it. I didn't really get to see the highlights until the airtime because I'm doing my own games and watching it happen and knowing McFarland's and the great stuff that he does on the football field. And he was a phenomenal football player, led the team to a Far West Regional appearance. And then knowing he can get it done on the court as well. I know some history over there with his lineage at Batavia. Nonetheless, that was dope to see because you don't get to see comebacks like that too often. I know March Madness had one a couple years ago. I think Alex Caruso in Texas A&M had like some ridiculous comeback late in like a round of 32 game. Not necessarily on that stage, but it's cool to see it in person. And I know that was cool for you to see as well.
Yeah, and I actually just went to Batavia's game last night. They had a big win over, not a big win, an impactful win over Athena. McFarland's had, I believe it was 6 threes in the first half alone. So kid can shoot. And the other thing you talk about, the perfect scenario. This is hope for everybody when you have a bet, a parlay, and you're like, all right, well, it's not looking good, folks, but you know what? If Travis Kelce scores this touchdown and then they get the onside kick and then they kick a field goal, it goes to overtime. They get the field goal in overtime and then they have to go on defense and they get a pick 6. And if all that happens, I think I'm going to finally win my bet. So we're still alive. That's what the situation was.
No, it really is. And for people who gamble who may not gamble at home, this is how you really talk yourself into stuff like this.
You really do. You're never dead until you're dead.
Nah, and it's one thing for the players to believe that, but it's someone for like a spectator to feel the same exact energy, be like, all right, I need this to happen. I need all this to go my way. And when it goes your way, Lord have mercy. You're the best gambler on the planet, the best person on the planet. And then obviously that team is forever immortalized in your gambling career. So I'm sure whoever, took Batavia plus 750 when the line was up, y'all, a new car on the way for y'all, for sure.
Exactly. We really need to start our gambling offshoot. However, I do not think the legality of that would work out. We'll have to talk to our lawyers on that one. But without further ado, it is time to bring in our guests of honor. We're going to bring them into the podcast. As we mentioned, Karen and Gerard Iglesia from Primetime 585, taking all things basketball, talking all things mental health. A great interview. Let's bring that to you right now. And as we mentioned, now time to bring in Karen and Gerard Iglesia of Primetime 585. Talk a little basketball, talk a little mental health. First things first, how are you guys doing today?
It's wet outside, but we're covering indoor sports, so it's all good. It seemed like Carl and I are going to be in a sauna in a couple of hours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to complain about that. I mean, swimming, actually, I don't mind it. Like, it's actually a pretty cool thing. It's an easy thing to shoot and stuff. So out of all the sports, swimming might be in that top 3 for real. I don't mind swimming.
I don't mind swimming either because, and then on top of that, you sometimes fail to remember how talented the top swimmers are. Sectional, there's levels to it, right? So when you're doing sectionals, you get the top swimmers, you know what I mean? You're like, wow, these kids, where even a second changes everything, right? And
tenth of a second.
So we actually love covering swimming. That's what diving too. Diving was long, y'all.
It's 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
All 4 hours. 286 dives Gerard got. It was hot. I lost 2 pounds when I was in there at church.
It's not a bad way to do it, though. It's a good diet plan. Just go to a diving meet. No, yeah, I love going to the swimming things. Every single time I get out to sectionals or whatever, I get reminded how much fun the swimming and the swimming is. Just all the yelling and stuff. It really is a good time. Yeah. So good to be inside.
The parents are wild, man. The parents are wild at swimming.
No, yeah.
The coaches are too. People don't know it's lit at swimming.
And I don't even know how much they can hear everybody. They can just hear yelling and screaming. But I know when I'm underwater, I can't really hear much of anything.
We said the same thing, but those parents swear their kids can hear them, though. I ain't mad at them.
At least it's all positive. They don't have any refs to yell at. All the yelling's positive in swimming for the most part.
Yep.
All right. So first, obviously, as we mentioned, it is Matt Trabold week. But first, we're going to talk a little basketball. Obviously, 585, it has branched out to everything, like we said, swimming, skiing, hockey, everything under the sun, but obviously the bread and butter basketball. So we've been talking high school hoops all season long. We want to get your take, the expert opinion. So first off, I just want to know, obviously you guys go out to all these games and around town, things like that. So if someone just comes up to you, sees you for the first time, and they're just like, man, what's going on in high school basketball this year? Like, what's just kind of your big takeaways from what we've seen so far this season?
I love to see the city teams grow back again. I love seeing the Monroes and the Franklin. I think that's a major addition in Section 5 is that these city teams, I mean, East is always, they're always there. But to see the growth of Monroe, the growth of Franklin after like 10, 12 years, not being factors and contenders, that to me is a big change in Section 5 basketball.
Yeah, and don't forget about Rats, which is not a city school, but they're in the city. It's a charter school, so they've had a great season too.
And seeing Carney come back behind Eric Hillsman, all 17 games he's played, he's at a double-double. All 17 games he's played, every single game.
As a freshman.
And the thing is, we know his dad lived with us at one point. So it's like a little circle, right? And his dad was ranked above LeBron James.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was ranked above LeBron James at one point. So to see that and to see, him as a ninth grader taking the reins of they're a young team. They have a seventh grader, they have an eighth grader, and they have a ninth grader leading that. And they've only lost 4 games, and they're playing good teams. And they brought Aquinas to the brink, to the last minute. So I think I like the fact that though there's new contenders, it's wide open. I don't know about y'all.
Yeah, I would say that with kids going to prep school,
yeah,
it's a win-loss. It's a loss for us that we don't see them, but it's a win for Section 5 because that evens out the playing field.
Yeah,
and we also got a kid from Brighton who went to prep school, came back, and now Brighton is a contender. McPherson. So I mean, like AA is wide open. There's so many good teams in that.
And even the sleeper teams, guys, I think that you can't put anything. Listen, I don't put anything past a Scott Fitch team. I don't put anything past a Jack Leisure team in AA. Look at them. They just knocked off Victor. And we're like, what happened, right? So you don't put anything past those teams because you just can't. So I think more than anything else, it's wide open in AA.
Yeah, a lower seed has a chance to knock off a higher seed right in the first round.
Anytime y'all mention LeBron James' name, y'all know I'm gonna pique my interest a little bit because I'm from Cleveland and all. So I hear that, I'm like, hold on. So I'm gonna have to head out to Kearney and see what they got cooking up over there. But you also mentioned Franklin, and earlier this week I was fortunate enough to do a story on Franklin and just how they returned back to prominence, their best start since I believe 2012. And we all talk about Shamir Freeman and how great he is. You and I have talked about how great he is off air. But this year is the twins, the Thompson twins. And Karen, you put me on to them being twins. In my story, it's revealed that they don't look like twins. They don't play like twins. They don't act like twins. One twin is 6'7", and the other is 6'2", and one plays like a guy who's 6'7", and the other plays like a kid who's 6'2". So the fact that, all of these dynamics, whether it's Shamir Freeman playing like he's on the playground, and then the Thompson twins, and Joe Jackson Jr. being a great coach for this team, everything I believe has come together for Franklin, like you said, to be another team in the city that's resurging. But what have you guys seen from the Bulldogs this year that's impressed you?
Well, first and foremost, let's go back a year. Actually, about a year and a half. Both those boys were the same height a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
They were literally the exact same height in a year and a half. One just sprung up over the other. So that's the first thing. And we saw them in Summer League. I did a story on them last year in Summer League. And what I like about them is that they actually play more team ball than people think. It looks like they're not, but they actually play team ball. They know their roles. Clarence and Terrence know their roles on the team. Shamir is just always going to be Shamir, right? He got the best handle in the rock. He does. That ball is on the string for him. So when I see him with the ball, I get nervous. Like where are you going? And then he just does something spectacular, right?
I call him Jamal Crawford. He's got that nice, tricky handle. and he can shoot the ball. He's a scorer.
That's the key. That's another thing that you asked. What's surprising with the Bulldogs is that they have legitimate 2 or 3 shooters. They could shoot it from all 3, outside, inside. They could finish at the basket. They're a legit threat. And I like to see that for them. I love to see that for them because that school kind of needs that. Mm-hmm. They've been through so much. So sometimes it helps the culture of the school. Sports do, as you guys know, that's a big thing that we dwell on, right? Is that the culture of a school is so important, and you're bringing that back. They sold out, man. They sold out. Listen,
good to see bleachers full.
You guys haven't been here in the Carl Jefferson days, on all these days when Franklin used to be a wrap around. You have to get there 2 hours in advance to get into a Franklin McQuaid game, and that's how lit it was.
Yeah, you had to go to the JV game to make sure.
That's the atmosphere. So I love, for people like us that's been doing this for 28 years. You love to see it for him. Yeah. You love to see it for him.
Yeah, Trent Jackson Jr. on that team. Yeah, he was player of the year.
He went to Ohio. Didn't he go to Ohio State?
Bowling Green.
Bowling Green.
He started out at Ohio State, then went to Bowling Green. David Mobley, whose nephew is John Mobley Jr., who's one of the best high school juniors in the country. So
there's a lot of legacy at Franklin. Franklin is by far the most legacy-driven basketball school in the 585's. So it's good to see, and then East. Yeah. So it's good to see that coming back, and all heads going and supporting those kids. That's all important, especially for inner city kids.
Yeah, and you talk about how, even Class AA is. And we talked about that a little bit last year, but even then, I think as we were saying it, we kind of knew Aquinas was like a little bit a step ahead. They just had that elite talent that it was going to be tough to beat in a sectional tournament. But I think really, and as I mentioned, we talked about last year, this year, I think you look at, AA standings 1 through 12, there are probably 9, maybe 10 teams where they've showed it this year in flashes where they certainly have the potential to win the AA championship. And those, like you mentioned, those top level teams, obviously they're very good. They've had a lot of nice wins, but no one's looking unbeatable at this point, where this sectional tournament 1 through 8, once you get to the quarterfinals, it's going to be a dogfight.
I agree. I agree with you. I think that 8 teams have legitimate shots. You're not shocked with the top 8. Like, you're not shocked. Like, seedings doesn't really matter in AA. From 1 to 8. That's just my opinion. So I agree with you. I'm getting stats. I'm getting scores. I'll give you an example. This is a lower class. Like in Athena yesterday, dogfight with Batavia, right? We're going down to A. But Z Johnson dropped 44 points.
I was at that game. It was crazy.
He has not scored above 20 points all season. 7-3. So things like once it changes, right? Once sectional start and just wipe the calendar. All that stuff is behind you. Anything can happen, man. Anything can happen. I love to see it.
In all the classes, there's 2 top teams that are going to be, it's going to be a great finals in all the classes.
Yeah.
Is there no, Carl, you can go.
You got to. No, I was just going to say, like, we talk about like the teams and how, how even it is across all the classifications a little bit, but you guys are at all these games. You guys are in the city, suburbs. You guys go an hour away sometimes. I don't know how y'all do it, but we'll get on that another day. Having said that, though, you guys see different flavors, whether it's the city kid with the yo-yo, you guys seeing, just all types of kids. Who are some of the players this year that are just not necessarily the best, but sometimes it can be both, but the most exciting players as you've seen so far in the 585?
Most exciting, I would say, is Shamir.
That's the most exciting, most surprising. What school were we at? Suburban school. Oh, we went to York. York versus Geneseo, right?
Yeah, they got players out there.
Yo, man, they got both teams.
If they were in Monroe County, they'd be a problem.
They would beat, I would say they could beat 60% of Monroe County, legit, the Monroe County teams. Totally surprised, totally shocking. They moved the ball well. They're well coached. I was shocked when I went to York versus Geneseo. And as I said, if you bring them into Monroe County, they're legit could beat 60% of these top teams. They have a lot of talent. A lot of the times out in small towns, they don't have a lot of things going on, so the kids could shoot because they're putting up shots all the time. So they'll have legit Jake Pangrazio. Yo, he ain't had a game under 22 yet. He dropped 34, 7, and 8 last night. And I'm talking about that's every night for Jake. Every single night. Maddox Timothy is averaging like 22 points. They're playing good teams. They've only lost 2 games. So I think to me is we're so used to talking about the Shamirs and all of these kids. But man, we've seen some suburban teams and some rural teams that we ourselves are just a little bit surprised at the talent level, and they just don't get their due because nobody wants to go to York, nobody wants to drive the hour, and to see really good. It was one of the best games we've seen. Both teams had a lot of good talent and played good ball.
Yeah, Avon's good too.
Yeah.
Lions has a kid out there, CJ Walker.
Is it CJ?
JC Walker, yeah.
JC Walker, but they got a 9th grader.
Yeah.
That kid, you know, the big kid is like what,
6'4",
6'5", only in 9th grade out in line. He's gonna be
yeah, he's like a baby Shaq.
And so they got some good talent out there. That, you know, they don't get a lot of light, they don't get a lot of shine. And that's how we try to go out. We try to balance it out a little bit. Batavia and those McFarland boys, listen, when Javen gets hot and his brother, and they have a Carter, they got a knack. They know where each other is. That brother connection, yo, man. Like, they're fun. Batavia's fun.
Batavia, a possible matchup in Batavia and Bishop Kearney is going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we were just talking about Batavia before we got on. I was at the game Friday. I don't know if you saw exactly how it went down in Eastridge. They were down 12 with 2:18 to go. They finished the game on a 17-0 run and win the game, down 12 in the final minutes. They can really put it up fast in a hurry.
Last year we went to a sectional game. They played North Star. They were down like 26.
Yeah,
in the beginning of the second quarter or the end of the first, and by the third quarter they were up like what?
By 10, 15? By 15.
Yeah,
they made up 30 points in a quarter and a half. We were like, what? They're the team that have a spark, and once they get that spark going, because there's a bunch of dogs, there are a bunch of football players on that team. Like, the whole team is football players except for one of them. McClintock is on there, McFarland is on there, so they're a bunch of like football guys playing basketball, really. So they're tough, and they just put that time in. I love watching them play. And Buddy Brasky is one of the top coaches in Section 5. So they play that buddy ball, and he really believes in defense. He's a dog on defense, one of the top coaches that really stress defense. So they have that. And when they press you, it's a wrap. It's a wrap with them. They're the dogs. They're football players playing basketball.
And you mentioned
playing football.
You mentioned, Double A and kind of the talent with the prep school, some of our top players going away, making it even. You go over to the girls' side, and all that top talent is certainly still here. I mean, I don't know, certainly in my time, in the few couple years I've been here, I don't know if we've had this much top level talent. I don't know how you guys would compare it, but how do you just kind of, put into context all of the elite girls players that we have in Section 5 right now?
We have a lot.
Yeah.
Every school has some, look at Bella Pucci. You look at Ella Meben, right? So you look at these are 2 D1 players on the same team going to top schools. And then you go out even in the rural areas and you see the Jayla Bells, right? And you go out. So
who's the girl got a scholarship to D1 Niagara? No.
Kylie Buckley, Livonia?
Oh, you're talking about
Livonia,
yeah.
So you got that. Then you have Zinkovich, right? She's a double. She had a triple-double yesterday. Didn't she have 34, 21, and 12 yesterday? Unbelievable, right? The Cardi Zinkovich. So you have all the talent level in the girls. You're right. They're here. They stay here.
And we left out Mariah and Bria Watkins.
That was getting to them.
Them girls are
they're unbelievable. Like, you just their skill level is so unique. So they're going to get the ball at the end. The other team knows she's going to get the ball. There's nothing they can do about it. That's just how good both of these girls are. I mean, shattered the record for most points in all of Webster, boys and girls, by the way. She's a boys and girls, and she still has a year and sectionals left, y'all. So like you think of that, and her sister's right behind her. So you're right, the girls are here. I don't know why the girls don't need to go to prep school. I love to see it though.
I'm not sure. A lot of girls, girls don't go to prep school.
I mean, we lost a couple from Kearney. What's her name? Went to Toronto.
Oh yeah.
Went to Toronto. Anaya. I mean, we lost a couple, but for the majority of the we got, we have a lot more Division I quality players and the girls' side. You're right, than the boys. Cadence Hadley, she had 35 yesterday. I mean, for Bishop Kearney, she had 35 and 12 yesterday. So there's a lot of talent. I think that's another thing. I think that's going to go down. The Final Four for that class is going to be real interesting.
Yeah, like Kearney has 5 potential scholarship players.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You got Asia Wilson, who was out last year with the knee injury.
Yeah.
She's good. Amaya Jackson is really talented, super talented. Cadence, I guess, what's her name? Hall,
yeah, she's good too. I mean, every team
good.
Yeah,
good is going to be great. Yeah.
And I think what it is you find even on the Webster team, let's use that as an example. We talk about Bella. I mean, we talk about the Watkins sisters, but even the backup girls are very fundamental. Like what's I can't remember.
Addie Morgan?
Yeah, Addison Morgan.
Yeah.
Like she's only a 10th grader, right?
She's good.
She's good. So we talk about those two, but even the role players are actually really good too.
Paralysis.
Look at Victor, y'all. Victor's doing what they're doing. Remember, they lost everybody last year. Everybody. So it was funny because AJ, I think you texted me after the first Victor game, right? We're not gonna say what you said. After the first Victor game, AJ saw me there on the way out. He texted me. And I said they were rebuilding. They only had, they lost every one of their starters. So they have an 8th grader starting. Rylan Fernbeck is a 9th grader. They have another 9th grader. Every single person that's starting is an underclass. Devin Livingston is the old hat, right? She's a whole hat. And she's only an 11th grader, right? And they started the season 0-4. First game, they got blown up by like 20-something, 25. Second game, they got blown up by like 20-22. And we were like, AJ was like, wow.
It's going to be a long season.
It's going to be a long season for them.
I think that was actually volleyball, but it's a similar story with how many people. It was how many people left, but their basketball team is now is feisty at the least, deadly potentially.
7 in a row. They've won, and they're beating good teams. Like they're. I mean,
and who they're not beating, they're being very competitive.
Yeah.
Teams.
So they're in it. 0-4 they started, but man, I like that team. I like they're young. They're going to be good in 2 years. Might as well give them a sectional championship because they're going to have a lot of these girls going to have a lot of experience playing.
Speaking of young teams, Aquinas. Now they're hurting. Now they lost 3 starters. To I think season-ending injuries, including their best player, with Missy Green.
Yep.
Yeah. But in a couple of years, that team is going to be stacked.
Yeah, there's a lot of girls in Section 5 that ball a lot. Ellie Bergman just got back from ACL surgery, and
dropped 36 the first game she started.
Yeah. So like she's amazing, and that's the Sutherland team that was rolling without her, and now they're playing. Now they're going to another level with her as well.
And they got a girl from Spain. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Cecilia. Yeah, she's an exchange here. Cecilia is an actual Spain. She's from Spain. So if you watch her, she plays very European-like. But
real skillful fundamentals and stuff like that.
And the Euro step and everything.
And she does the Euro step and everything. Yeah, she's from Spain. She's only been here a year, barely.
I think they just call it the step over there. That's just a step.
She's from Spain, barely speaks English, and she joined the team this year. I interviewed her about that, and she said they welcomed her in, and she loves it. But she's good. She brings a lot to that team.
Yeah. So sorry, Carl, you were going to say what?
No, I didn't know that. I'm happy that you guys brought that up. But we all have teams and sort of biases or whatever that when you see them, you stamp them and you're like, all right, this is a team who I not necessarily are going to go all the way, but I have a lot of supreme faith in this team. Who are maybe a couple teams that like that for you guys, whether it's a sleeper team, a team who may not get a lot of love? This team, you saw them a couple times and you're like, they're going to be a rough outcome sectional time, or they might mess around and win the whole darn thing. Who are some teams like that for you guys, boys or girls?
Carl's trying to get us in trouble.
Yeah, I say double A, fifth seeded Franklin is very good.
I think this is it's not a sleeper team, but I think they're coming together with all the pieces. I think Athena is going to be a problem, only because not only their athleticism, not only because they're well coached, they have 3 brothers that start. And I always think that when you have siblings playing on the same team, you bring a little bit, you have an extra little bit of an edge. You know where each other is going to be. You have a good, you know the chemistry is a little bit different. So I've never seen 3 brothers start on the same team.
You had 4 or 5 at Batavia.
Oh yeah, at Batavia they did.
About 10 years
About
ago.
10 years ago.
The Boy brothers.
Listen, both of them said, oh, we were like 12. But
the Hoy brothers from Batavia, yeah.
So they have 3 brothers that start at Athena. I think Corey Reeves could give them 25 at any time. Connor Osh is one of the best big men in Rochester. With his footwork, he's a straight up stud. So I think they kind of have all the pieces in place. And D Johnson dropping 44 scares me, because 7 threes is not by luck, right? So that kind of make me feel like they're really not a sleeper team, because but around the court, we can't forget it.
Yeah, it may very well come down to those 2 for A1.
I think they have because they beat each other once before, each time by 1 or 2 points.
No, the first game.
No,
the first game around the court won by like 12, but it was a close game until about 5 minutes left.
And it was foul trouble too.
Yeah,
I think they got into foul trouble. So I think honestly that those 2 teams just have so much talent. They're so well coached. I'm not talking about any other team that they can't do it, but I would say those 2 teams are 2 of the teams that I think will go all the way to the finals, because they just have a lot of the pieces. Because they have a big man. What's his name? From around the court, the big guy, the football.
Oh yeah, Ballard. Isaiah
Ballard. Nobody talks about him. Football player. He's tough. He worked a lot in the off season. Probably the most improved player in Section 5, honestly. Like, he a totally different person last year. He knows his body. He slimmed down, got some weight, got the muscles. So when you have all the pieces, when you have the point guard,
who's a player of the year candidate, Ryan Heath.
You have a shooting guard. You have a big man. You got Quinn, who could also shoot it. They have 2 shooting guards.
Xavier Gissendown is tough.
It's tough to match up with him. And I think the only team that could possibly match up with him is Athena. That's just where I'm putting that.
Then A2 is loaded. You got Monroe, who just suffered their first loss recently. You have East, Sutherland, Mendon, who when Jackson's
back.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
When he plays, they're tough. So those.
I think Monroe has a good shot. Let me tell you why. Monroe, they're all humble. They play as a team. McCormick got them believing, and they have a chip on their shoulder because it's been so long. This is the best start they've had in 30 plus years, just like the football team did. So they have a chip on their shoulder, and don't underestimate kids with chips on their shoulders, because that sometimes brings some passion. And I love Jaquan Shears' game.
Yeah,
love his game. So what about you guys?
Well, I'm really looking forward to Class A too. I mean, we talked before about Double A, and the thing is with Double A, they don't seem to be playing, just because of their schedules, the different teams, like Aquinas doesn't play everybody, Franklin doesn't play everybody, just because, city schools and private. But like Class A, like you mentioned, Rondequoit's played Athena a couple times. Mendon's playing all these teams. East is locking up with Monroe. So I think the difference with Class A, which is why I'm also really looking forward to it, is that these teams have already played against each other. We've seen some of these matchups. They're going to be a little bit more familiar with each other. they're going to have, like Veronica and Athena, it's going to be like their 12th time playing against each other if they meet up in the playoffs. So I think that's what I'm really looking forward to in Class A boys. And then, like you mentioned, on the girls' side, 4 or 5 teams, not only 4 or 5 teams who could win the sectional championship, 4 or 5 teams that, they could go all the way and make a deep state run. Bishop Kearney obviously winning it all last year. If it's, Fairport, Schrader, Bishop Kearney, obviously, Penfield, you can never count them out. Hilton, I think Hilton's always that 5th, banana in girls basketball. I've seen some really impressive stuff from Hilton this year, where I don't know if I would put them in that top tier just yet. But if your bracket shapes out where you've got Hilton in a first round matchup as like a 4-5, that is tough.
Well, Webster Schrader just beat Penfield for the #1 seed. But as a reward, Schrader, as the #1 seed, could very well play Bishop Kearney in the semifinals.
Finals. Not the finals, in semifinals.
Yeah. And those two are might have the most talent.
Carl, what about you?
Honestly, this entire year, the AA girls has been the most exciting for me, because coming into the season, the Watkins sisters were one of the first story I ever did in high school when I got here. So I'm like always a little like tied to like how they're doing and stuff like that. But then last year, the sectional run that Fairport went on, when I saw what Bella Pucci and Ella did, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm locked in. Y'all know how I feel about the people who can just go put the ball in the cup. BK and how they go about it. That BK press you in your face the entire game, put the ball in the cup. I love that about them. And then also last year when I saw Hilton play Schrader, I believe in the sectional semifinal over at Victor, the young girl that got over there, Mallory Heiss, I mean,
Yeah, she tough.
Problem.
She
like
tough.
a legit problem. And so I'm not necessarily gonna say like I have like a legit pick or anything of that nature, but that AA bracket for girls, I'm locked in on. Like I'm really trying to see how it shapes out, because you got superstar players, you got great coaches, especially the one over there at Penfield. I mean, you pick your poison on what type of flavor you want. Class AA girls got it for you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, the second round, the 4-5 matchup is going to be really
and you want
good.
to talk about another bracket. I mean, it might be down a little bit because you mentioned Aquinas has some injuries. B1 girls, Waterloo, Palmac, Livonia, Aquinas, like those are teams that, could compete for a, Class A championship there.
They got Morgan Caraballo out of Waterloo. She putting up, she's in the 20s every single game. I mean, you're right. It's exciting. This is, to me, one of the most exciting years. It seems like there's a lot more equal teams, boys and girls. Like, you don't feel like there's nobody that's like, okay, let's give them a sectional championship.
In any class.
And boys and girls. Like, there's a lot of people have a shot. In some classes, there's 4 teams that anybody could win that. Not surprised if anybody win it. In Class AA, I got like 7 or 8. Just like what AJ said. I got like 7 or 8 that legit wouldn't be shocked if they want it. So it's good for people like us, right? That's covering sports, because it's exciting. The worst part for us is deciding where to go. That's going to be the worst part for us, is deciding where to go, because we're going to run into some good games, especially the semifinals.
Yeah, a lot of good games, and we obviously know that you guys are going to be at them all, as will we. Good to see, the kids all getting some love. But now we're going to switch over to the second half of our conversation. Obviously here, as we mentioned, it is Matt Trabold week. It is okay to not be okay, the tagline there. And just first off, this is your second year of doing this. How have you seen maybe things change this time around, this year that you're doing it, than last year? Maybe some momentum that you're building here with what we've got going on here.
We've seen a lot of kids. The kids have taken the reign of this. Last year we had 22 schools that really took part. This year we're in the 40s. So we're doubling the amount of schools that's taking part. We added some video component because we wanted the kids to know that as a community, right, we got you. So we added a judge, the district attorney, the Monroe County sheriff, different coaches. We really wanted to emphasize mental health when it comes on to Black males. So on Tuesday, we had different Black males, from coaches to superintendents, to different people, basically, put a video together, because it's also cultural, right? So we're trying to break the stigmatism, not just overall about youth, but also the cultural part of Black males, especially athletes. There's all kind of stuff, right? So we're telling athletes, you're all right, you're good, let's go, you're good. And we can't keep doing that. And what I've seen, the changes are that kids are inboxing me more. I have a lot of DMs. I have over 300 right now that's sitting in my Instagram, all different things. I play football. I'm struggling with this. They struggle with more things than we did, right? So playing time affects them. A lot of different things affect them. Their coaches are affecting them a little bit more. So we can't look at it as, well, you just get over it. We got to find a way to normalize telling them it's okay to not be okay. It's how you deal with this stuff. So we kicked it off with Dr. Cypher on Sunday. We had 542 people logged on our Instagram Live. Kids asking questions of Dr. Cypher. And it ranges from, how do I get more playing time? How do I talk to my coach? How do I do this? Because all of those things affect kids now that didn't affect kids before, right? How do I keep my coach from yelling? Because Gerard used to yell all the time on the sidelines, all the time. Like, he really should not have been coaching anybody's kids.
I yelled at the refs, not at the kids.
He yelled at the kids too.
Oh yeah, I did. I'm old, I forgot.
But it's different times, right? So sometimes there's some old school coaches in Section 5, and some of these kids are 14 and 15, and they're not accustomed to that coaching style. So we get a lot of questions about that and how to handle it.
Young coaches too.
Yeah, it varies now. Mm-hmm. So we just, we're glad that it's a movement for the kids. And what we like more than anything else, the kids have taken the reign. The kids are planning, like Hilton kids yesterday, they did their own thing. The student section wore shorts. They didn't ask me. I didn't plan it. Victor section, they did the same thing. Today, the Wayne boys are doing the Wayne student section, and the Wayne coaches, they're doing it at their school. HFL did it today. So I like the fact that the kids are taking ownership, the young adults. That to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and there's so much. Oh, go ahead, Gerard.
No, I do want to say, and it's not just high school kids. It's also, athletes who've been told all their life that they're going D1, they're going NBA, and when that doesn't materialize, they're out of school now, and they're struggling at the JUCO, or wherever they're at, D3, whatever. And that messes with you. When you've been told all your life that you're going to be in the NBA and you're going to make and they're thinking, I'm going to make $100 million in my life. And then they're at a junior college and they don't even know where their next meal is going to come from. That'll mess you up.
And we're finding that, right? So, those, especially when you're a college athlete and you are a superstar in Section 5. Hey, we were covering you, we're showing you love, all of that, then suddenly it just stops. That does affect them.
I told Isaiah Stewart, I'm not going to tell you you're going to the NBA. I mean, he's in the NBA now, but I told him, I think it'd be, because as a freshman, he had no offers and he was all upset. I said, pretty soon,
it's going to come.
It'll come, and then you're going to get tired of all these offers and all these coaches calling you. So just enjoy this time now. I said, but I think it's irresponsible for me to tell you that you're going to the NBA, because if it don't work out, then you're going to be all messed up in your head. And I think that's something I know people are going to be all in Eric Hilsman's, ear about that. And I hope he makes it. I think he has a shot to play high major, D1.
But it's our job to also keep him grounded, because Eric is kind of like our family too, right? So I pick him up from school, he's family. So we want to make sure we're in his ears telling him about the academics, and not everybody makes it. We try to keep that part of him grounded, because we feel we've seen this movie 1,000 times. How many kids think that they're going to go to the NBA? So, and there's only 60 jobs every year, right? So that's why it's important. So all of that stuff as a platform, it's okay to not be okay, is to let kids know, especially young adults, it ain't gonna always work out, but it doesn't mean that life is over, right? We just got to you have to go on a different path, and we have to send that message to our kids. And it's working.
It's not even like, I mean, a lot of great players think that. It includes people who are like the sixth man. I had a kid who was the last guy on my bench as a senior. I asked him, "What are you doing next year?" He says, "I'm gonna play for Syracuse." Like,
Didn't even play. Didn't get into the game. So, so we have to, as I said, so that's part of our campaign is to keep it going. But what the big change that we've seen this year is that kids have really ran with this. They've made it viral within Section 5. The kids did.
And I think I really like the way that you phrase it. It's okay to not be okay. And I'm sure this was intentional, but just to kind of expand on that is that so many times when we think of, mental health, we kind of go to, the worst case possible scenario. It obviously always gets brought up, when someone commits suicide, it gets brought up, unfortunately, so much when, there's a mass shooting, things like that. Everybody talks about mental health. But it doesn't always have to be, that far on the extreme to the fact where really all it has to be is you're not okay. I mean, me myself personally, I see a therapist. I get a great benefit from going to see my therapist. And it's, obviously it's so important to get these resources when you're in that dark place. But just, I think everybody can see a therapist just with everything that's been going on with COVID. You talk about COVID itself. The last 2 years, the isolation and the things like that, I don't think just going through that alone is enough justification to to talk to someone, because you don't have to be to that level to reach out for help. You don't have to have both your arms broken to go see the doctor. You can just go in for a checkup, and I think that's really important that's the way you guys phrase this thing.
Well said.
And that's exactly why we did it that way.
Yeah, and this message is also getting out to young adults. Hell, I'm married, so I have some.
I know, even worse. Listen, he married to me, so I know. Listen, I ain't mad at him. He's married to me. Listen, you gotta know your flaws. 28 years. I wouldn't want to be in his position. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. But on a serious level, I honestly believe that it's working. And AJ said it the right way. It's not about being it doesn't have to be extreme. That's why we kind of make it light. It's okay to not be okay. Because just because you go see a therapist don't mean that you're suicidal. It just means that you might just like, if you have a headache, you take an aspirin. Just like, it's the same kind of thing. So first of all, I applaud you for saying that. So, I applaud you. That takes a lot for you as a man to say that and to normalize saying that, because a lot of us don't. And we let our kids know that, make it feel like it's a weakness. And you're right. It's fine to just go get a little bit tune up, because some things happen, especially, you're right, coming out of COVID. Imagine being an athlete during COVID, when you're on the cusp of being like a superstar or whatever, and then COVID happened and nobody could come and see your season is gone. That's a lot of stuff that people are dealing with right now.
And they're thinking, man, I could have made a college scholarship or something, but no coaches could come and see me, and it's.
So I applaud you guys for, and Matt was a special guy. How he covered sports was so unique. He taught us so much, because he had a unique way of covering the sixth man who came in and took 2 charges, but that 2 charges he took ended up helping to foul out their star player. And that was his story on the air. It wasn't about the player that dropped 25. He'll say they dropped 25, but he has a unique way of letting kids, or even the videos that he put up, letting kids feel special. And that's where we got it from. He's the first person I know that was doing student sections the way he did, really going to student section. When he walked into a gym, people knew who he was by the shorts. And I got to applaud Carl, by the way, since I'm saying this. Because Carl, is funny because you don't even know this, right? But you are so important to Section 5 sports, especially being a male of color, because they don't see a lot of young men like you. And not only that, just the fact that you're a male of color and you played at a Division I level, and not for nothing, you mad cool. All of those things are important for young Black males. No, it's important. And they tell me this. They're like, oh, how you know Carl? Like, they know him. Like, he's now a part of it, right? Because the kids like, yo, how you, like, they know, like, they call him Carl, where if it's Mike Catalano, like this Mr. Catalano, but it's Carl, because Carl mad. You understand? But all of that is important for our kids.
And I want to applaud both of you and, Channel 8. And I'm not going to try to piss the other stations off, but you guys do more coverage than any other station.
For high
Combined.
school.
Combined.
And like all of that stuff is recognized. It's so important. We have to say it because we are on the sidelines with you. The kids talk to us. And what I tell people all the time, we help each other out. Like probably, yo, fam, send me the book. I gotta run to another story. Or I'll text you guys. And I try to tell people, I feel like this is a sports community that's just trying to elevate our kids, man. It ain't no competition. It's about elevating our kids. And that's important. So I want to also applaud Channel 8 and both of you guys because it's seen, it's noticed, and you do help with those kids and their mental health. They see you walk in and they're just as excited. And that's the kind of thing that you guys also add to Section 5.
If you're at the game, it must be a big game.
Yeah.
It must be important.
And you know people say that, oh, every time and Channel 8 here, yo, it's on and popping. Like that's the kind of reputation you guys have gotten. You might not know, but they really talk about that.
Hey man, it's enough food on the table for all of us to eat for sure. Also, yeah, the other day at that store, I was at the Franklin store, and homeboy tried to play me to a game of one-on-one. So he definitely tried me in that regard, but it's cool though. I'll get him back on the other side. It didn't go so well for me.
You must have lost.
We ain't gonna talk about that. Having said that though, I do think it is important, especially as someone who grew up in the African American community and the stigma of mental health. We talked about this ad nauseum off the air. I think that with bringing up mental health, I don't want to speak out of bounds here, but it is seen as a weakness in a lot of regards. And speaking on that, point blank period, I grew up in a household where you didn't talk about that, right? That's just something like, hey, my man, that ain't tough, right? And I do think it's cool that you guys are targeting athletes to be the forefront of this. Because in a school community, the athletes are seen as the toughest people in the building, right? The football player is supposed to be the toughest guy, right? I mean, he's the one that beats his head in every Friday. He has to be the strongest guy here, right? Or the swimmer who's swimming laps for 30 laps all darn day. So the fact that you guys are targeting these individuals, it helps the other students out. They're like, hey, if these guys are being vulnerable, if these ladies are being vulnerable and speaking about something that's so unseen, it allows me to be more open in speaking about this because right, wrong, or indifferent, that's just the stigma of sports, right? These people are tough. Like these are the people who can battle through anything, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how it is. So I do think, obviously, you guys are a sports platform first, but I do applaud you guys for being strategic in the way that you guys are not necessarily going to the teachers first. Like, no, let's go to the athletes. You guys be the forefront of this because you guys can take this much further than we ever could.
And I applaud Section 5 athletes because they embrace that, right? Even the tough football players. And like today, I look at Nolan, I look at all these guys, and they're right in the forefront. They're talking about it. They talk about how important it is. So I also applaud Section 5 for believing in me and embracing this because when we started, we said, we don't know how people are going to take this because nobody want to talk about it. Nobody want to talk about it. I don't know how they're going to do it. And I said to Gerard, I'm going to do it anyways. I don't care. And now it's its own thing where everybody tomorrow Adam Bello is gonna do his the county. He's gonna wrap it up and finalize it. So to show from the top down, from judges to everybody, also with the kids and the athletes. And Carl, you're right. We were strategic on that front because it was important to us.
Today we had a real cool experience. We went to the international school on Edgerton Avenue. It used to be Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it might be Jefferson.
Yeah.
But go ahead, tell them.
Man, we went to they're doing, because a lot of city schools don't participate in this. We went to the Rochester International Academy with Mary Diaz. And I tell you, the kids were on the stage in shorts. They're all like African kids, Muslim kids. They're all refugees at the school. And they started saying it's okay to not be okay, all in their own language. So they were saying it in 9 different languages.
To reach out to their own people
about, and that just talk about the culture, because in those cultures, you just don't talk about therapy. So that to me was one of the most defining things, that it got to that point where refugees are saying in their own language to get those voices out to the Muslim community, to the different communities in 9 different languages. That was the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, because Mary Diaz Andrikolich, the principal, told me that like in some of those countries, they don't have any kind of mental health
At all.
at all. And those are the most messed up. They're refugees. They're coming from horrific situations. And there's nothing to help them with their mental health. They're seeing buildings bombed right in front of them. They're seeing their relatives shot to death in front of them. So if anybody needs this, it's them, and it wasn't available to them.
So that was probably to me, that's a big thing that we've done, is that we kind of jumped over to the refugee community to show that everybody needs help no matter what. So we're really thankful for that.
And I will say, I do think this younger generation, the Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, it has become so much more normalized to just talk about mental health and to see a therapist and to things like that. Just the discussions with millennials, Gen Z, just seeing things online. It is so much more open, where I actually, I think the proof is in the pudding. The fact that everything that people are discussing, what you guys are doing, other people, things online, campaigns, things of that nature, I think it's just so. And even at the younger levels, like elementary school, just the fact that schools are now emphasizing like social learning more than anything, how you deal with problems, because it's one thing to learn in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, whatever, how to read, do math, things like that, but to learn the skills as to how to deal with tragedy and problems and issues with your peers are obviously arguably as important, if not more important, just to have that in your toolbox, which I think is going to really pay dividends going forward. Just everything that's going on at the younger levels.
Well, we appreciate y'all putting a spotlight on this too, by the way. We really do appreciate that.
And what we talked about a little bit about this before, just obviously is Matt Trabold week, and the fact that not only are we emphasizing the message of mental health and suicide awareness and things like that, but just with the turnover of Section 5 sports and the nature of high school athletes, it is nice that we're able to reintroduce people to Matt Trabold and who he was and the things he stood for, and just to make sure that that he is not forgotten there.
He'll never be forgotten. Actually, our summer camp that we do, Gerard's camp, the Coach Iglesia camp, our logo as his shorts and his initial, that's our forever logo that we've included, because we want to let people know he was instrumental in our platform. I think that he's the one that, when I first started this, I only had like 700 followers. And he was a mainstream media guy that was, from his account, would share our stuff. If I put something up about a good play, he would share it, because he knew he had thousands of followers, and he knew that so he helped us. I really believe without Matt, we would be a different platform. And people didn't know he used to write a lot of our shows. Our Sunday shows, he would write a lot of that, our top 20 players. He would send me a whole, remember we said, Matt, just send me the names. Matt, if anybody texts it, Matt knows one thing, a whole thesis is coming as to why. He'll know what size shoes they wear. Like, Matt, just send me your top 20. He will send the top 20 and have all the data, the stuff.
And they'd be from little schools.
Yeah.
You never heard of.
So and that helped us concentrate on smaller schools because of him. Because he would send me all this stuff. I'm like, who the heck is this, Matt? Oh, yeah, she had 28 points and 2 rebounds and assists. And by the way, you know that she's studying, she wants to go to, I don't know how he knew this stuff. And that was his unique way of how he covered sports. And we're going to forever honor him, because I think that he's partly responsible for Primetime, and we're going to forever be indebted to him for that, because we're so instrumental in Section 5 sports. And a lot of that was built on his back, some ideas he gave us, how we cover it, the style we model off of him.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys, AJ as well, for introducing me into his life, because I was unfortunately not able to ever meet him. I got my job in Rochester a few months after he passed away, but everything about him just sounds so unique and so passionate. I mean, I learned a new story that he brought to the table every single day. I knew that he was a guy who was unique on Twitter in all that regards. I had no idea that he's sending theses on players around Section 5, which is kind of cool to see. But just the fact that a guy like that had an impact on not just Section 5, but this I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to expand beyond that. So just want to give him his flowers and the impact that he had, because it's going to be instrumental for going forward on my mental health.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you also really shining a light on this, because when the kids look up to you, they watch you. So all of this is, the more we talk about it, the more. And I like what AJ said. AJ actually hit it right on the head when he said it doesn't have to be extreme. It could just be something minor. But sometimes the minor things could lead to extreme. So I really am glad that you guys said that. And we appreciate you guys shining the light on this. We really do.
Yeah, it is. It's an unfortunate thing we have to talk about, but obviously, you know, we've all known Matt and far too many people, myself personally, who have, lost their battles with depression. So it's very important to talk about this stuff. And I appreciate you guys coming on. Before we let you go here, is there anything else you'd like to plug? I know you guys have a lot of resources on your website. Where can they see this stuff? Where can they go to get some help that you guys have?
Right on our website, we have all the different resources on, even by town. So if you're in Canandaigua, if you're in Victor, if you're in HFL, we try to do things by town also. They could click on any of that stuff. It doesn't matter what the reason is. We have resources for the LGBTQ community also. We have all different kind of resources on there. All they got to do is click on that and they could get help. We try to really normalize that. So it's right on our website, and kids do utilize it. As a matter of fact, during this time of the year, it's our most used part of the website when we monitor it. So we appreciate that. So I'll be seeing Carl at swimming later.
Carl's ready to go. Out to the pools. But we thank you for coming on the podcast. We will, of course, see you the rest of the high school season and beyond. Karen, Gerard, thank you very much for joining us here today to talk about all this important stuff with us.
Right,
appreciate you guys, man. Good job, fam. Appreciate y'all. Take care.
All right, and once again, we want to thank Karen and Gerard for coming on the podcast, shining a light on all of our high school athletes, our basketball athletes, chatting a little there, and of course on the mental health side of thing. And I was really glad to hear the fact that they said, they're tracking their website stats and things like that. Is that, this message is working. They're seeing a lot of traffic on the website. It's good for people to know where these resources are, how they can get there. And I think they're doing a really good thing, shining this light around Section 5 here.
Yeah, for me, I think it was the refugee conversation. I think that was very important to hear how they they've now reached Rochester International School, which is dope to see, just like the different walks of life and the different backgrounds of kids that this campaign is reaching out to. This is what it's about, though, and the reach and the impact. And as long as they're hitting every demographic and all walks of life and people, I mean, this, like I said at the end, I think this can go much further than just Section 5.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on RochesterFirst.com, you can of course see the links in the description down below. If you're listening to this on a podcast, we'll have that in the description as well. Primetime585.com is the address. I'm double checking to make primetime585.org is the website to go to. So for everything, you can find them on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I see most of their stuff on Twitter, but I know that a lot of people see it on Instagram. I'm just not on there as much. So such a great thing for them to do, and all the coverage we really appreciate. And as we mentioned before, all the help they give us, because it completes our shows a little bit.
Yeah, that 10 o'clock, 10:30, the stats and scores ain't come in on the Section 5 website. Hey, Karen, I saw you was there. Can you give me the box score? What happened? And they always, without a doubt, come through in the clutch.
Yeah, so great to have them on. Next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming. It'll be the final week of the basketball season. I believe that Friday is the seeding meeting, so I don't think we'll get our brackets just yet, but we'll be able to wrap up the regular season. I think hockey will have its brackets out. We'll probably be able to talk maybe a little hockey sectional preview. We've got I've got a story coming out in the near future too about Section 5 hockey, so look forward to that. But once again, that'll do it for us today. You can listen to us RochesterFirst.com, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere, just about everywhere you find your podcast and your video. We thank you for joining us. We hope you took that conversation to heart, get some use out of it. Check out those resources that we've mentioned before. But for Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. It's time now to break the huddle. and we will see you next time.